Welcome back to the Athletes Podcast. This is episode 71 featuring Mikey Taylor, presented by the local skate shop. Mikey's an unbelievable skateboarder, an incredible human being. I had such an amazing conversation. He's an extremely insightful individual, especially when it comes to life after sport. Again, an incredible human being. I sincerely hope you guys appreciate what he brings to the table on this episode. I hope you enjoy episode 71 of the Athletes Podcast. Here we go. Mikey Taylor, what's up, brother?
What's going on, dog?
I'm doing well, man. How about yourself?
Doing well.
You got business meetings going on right now? You just go podcast, meeting, interchange? What's going on?
Yeah. It's never well. We just launched a new offering last week, so it's a little bit. It's just great. It's a little crazy right now.
Okay, so tell me about it now. Let's go. Let's get it on the Athletes Podcast.
You go straight in.
Yeah.
So
pitch before you just sell before you even describe what you do.
I know it. So we have a storage unit portfolio where we buy basically dark boxes. When a Kmart or a Walmart goes dark, we've even done grocery stores. We'll buy those and then convert them into storage or repurpose into storage. Dope. And this fund's been closed for since 2017 and has performed really well. And it just kind of has kind of gotten out there what our model is. And because of COVID and all of the retail being distressed, we are reopening it again. So it's like we have a lot of investor excitement. And it's just been kind of a whirlwind in a good way. I mean,
nice.
Yeah, I'm thankful for it, but it's like, okay, how do I get all this done and still be, a husband and parent? And so, yeah, that's what you get: meetings and then podcasts and meetings and then
100%. You got
now Clubhouse just jam that whole cycle up too.
Right? It's crazy. It's like the one where you got to be FOMO. You got fear of missing out on whatever conversation. You want to be an early adopter. Like, oh man, ridiculous. And you got a lot of stuff on the go, man. You got 3 kids. You got a wife. You got plans. You got investing. Like, this is why I'm super thankful and grateful to have you on the Athletes Podcast, man. I appreciate you coming on, taking the time.
Dude, I'm stoked to be here, brother.
So I just there's so many areas that I want to dive into with you. Okay. The investing aspect, real estate, but let's focus on you as an athlete first, because you were a pretty damn good skateboarder. I think there's something to be said for arguably one of the best in the world.
As far as what how good I got, just on my own, I'd say goals. Yeah, dude, I was pretty stoked with some of the stuff I did. Totally.
Dude, it's pretty incredible. I'm going around telling people, I'm like, man, I got Mikey Taylor coming on my show. I'm like, this is legit.
Yeah.
I'm going through stages. Last week we had Brett Keller on, who's a starting pitcher for the Kansas City Royals, and I'm like, it's just crazy now. Clubhouse I attribute a lot of it to that because I've been able to make some pretty cool connections along the way. But really, really stoked to have you on. And it's super cool going through doing my research just on man, you started skating before I was born.
I was with a couple guys, actually went skating yesterday for the first time in months. And nice. I was talking to a couple of my friends and we realized that I turned pro 20 years ago. Which is crazy.
That's insane.
Yeah, I'm touching 40, man. 2 years I'll be 40. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, hey, the fact that you're still out there skating is a testament to the fact that you still love the sport and the energy around it. I think that's what's so cool and so unique about skateboarding. I never got into it myself, but definitely had friends who were involved and interested. And what kind of spurred you on? I know kind of at the age of 14, you got into it. You're in LA. It's got that vibe. You started with biking and, skateboarding kind of led you into it. But what was that initial spurt that got you onto boarding?
It was dude, I saw one of my friends, and he was one of the cool kids. He got a skateboard. And I just wanted to basically fit in, and so I got one as well. But what grabbed me about it was kind of 2 parts. One, I had always done before skateboarding, I was playing hockey. It was more of the conventional stuff where it was really team oriented. I love that skateboarding was just me. It was how can I do this the way I want to do it? How can it was me against myself, which I liked. And then the other thing was like I started seeing things in the world that I kind of hadn't seen prior to skateboarding. For example, like I thought handrails were only used to walk up and down stairs. And the first
Mm,
time I saw somebody jump on a handrail on a skateboard, I was blown away. It was like,
yeah.
oh, I never would have ever thought that somebody could do that. And then it was like, okay, what else am I missing? You
Mm-hmm.
know? And I was just really
100%.
interested in like, trying to see the world differently.
Mm-hmm. That's so cool because I think that's something that, now having it's been around for 20, 30 years, this sport of skateboarding, and people have seen basically for the most part what can be done. But there's always that unique aspect that someone else is going to pull something random out that hasn't been done before.
Hmm.
That's very unique, I think, to extreme sports in that sense where, I think it was the X Games guys were pulling off 1800s, like ridiculous spins. Like
Mm,
the announcers were
mm,
having troubles just figuring out how many spins those guys were doing in the air. Like
yeah.
wild stuff. And I think that's what's super unique about those sports. Uh, when you were playing hockey, do you think you might have been the next, Austin Matthews from California if you had stuck with the sport of hockey?
Oh man. Uh like look, my belief is uh I'm gonna if I want to be a pro, I'm gonna be a pro. Like that was always
Mm,
my belief. Like I felt like anything was possible. Uh and so if I would have stuck with it, I would have been. But shit, I don't know. I'm not sure because with skating, like there was something about skating that was one of the things that's different about skateboarding, like as opposed to something like hockey or baseball or basketball, at the end of the day, it just matters if you get the ball in the hoop or if you get the
mm,
puck in the goal. That's all that matters, right? It doesn't matter if you throw the ball differently than someone else. It just matters that it goes in consistently, right? With skateboarding, how you do it is almost more important than the trick itself, right?
mm.
So there was something about that I really liked because uh, I could create something that was more valuable than somebody else, but we were doing the same trick. And so
Interesting.
when I kind of realized that, and then how to use something like marketing or even like how my personality was to then make myself a bigger skateboarder.
Yeah.
I think that really played into a lot of my success when it came to skateboarding, where I don't know if I would have had that opportunity if I would have stuck to like more of the conventional sports.
Makes
Does that make
sense.
sense?
Yeah, 100%.
Like
How you
skateboarding
kind
was
of
more like entrepreneurial. It was more about like how can I do this different than the person next to me? And how can I separate myself where I think it's a little bit of a different thing with other sports.
yeah, it totally makes sense. And that I was going to say that's why you ended up kind of becoming this entrepreneur post skating.
Mm,
And it totally makes sense. One of the things I'm curious about when you're going through competitions, because it does have a factor of, how you do the trick is important and maybe more important for that matter. When you're going through how you score the goal doesn't matter. You score a goal, it's worth 1 point. For you, when you've got judges who are subjective and like they're making a decision based on what a trick looks like, how do you like, man, for me, I'm going through, I'm thinking like, poor guys, I just pulled off the trick of my life and they didn't like the fact that my left knee was slightly turned outwards or whatever the case may be. How do you deal with that? Come to terms with it that, it is a subjective sport and you are subject to being judged.
Um, you know what? For me personally, like I wasn't like a big contest guy. Like I started skating contests later in my career. I did them more because like at that time I thought it was fun, but I really could care less how or if I really won any of them. I know that sounds
Mhm.
weird being somebody like I am really competitive, but
Yeah.
like skateboarding was never about contests. Like until recently, really. And so I think because of the generation I came in at, it was like, dude, I focus on video parts, I focus on magazines, I focus on like true street skateboarding. Uh, and then when contest came on board, it was like, okay, I'm not going to do that. And then Rob Dyrdek basically created a contest where he tried to make it as close to street skateboarding as possible. And so I was like, okay, that sounds cool. I'll do that. And then I did that for 4 years and then I didn't anymore. So I never really like I didn't put a lot of pressure on myself as far as judges and what they thought. I just went and thought it was fun.
Yeah, that's the probably the best mindset you could have had going into it, right? 100%. You're just going through and enjoying the sport itself.
Yeah.
I'm curious, when you're skating around, early teens, late teens in Los Angeles, what was the heckling like? Were you getting people honking at you? Were you having cops bugging you? I'm going through, I'm thinking, I'm like, if I'm a 17-year-old, I'm probably causing up a bit of a stir somewhere. I'm doing something that I probably shouldn't be doing. Like, tell me through. I'm sure you got a couple stories of good things happening.
Uh, yeah. So cops were kind of a daily thing for us.
Mm,
Um, yeah, people would like heckle us, but it was more cops. Like they were kind of who we were concerned with.
right.
Um, Gosh, what there were I mean, dude, there was one time that was probably like the worst moment for me. We were in San Bernardino and we were skating at night. We're like in this random school. It's probably like 1, 2 in the morning. And cops come. And we're just like, all right, whatever, we're getting kicked out. Like we're like super mellow about it.
Hmm.
And these cops coming guns blazing, right? They are hot. And so yeah, everybody on the floor, everybody on the floor. We're like, what? These dudes are serious, right? And basically, as they kind of cool down, they realize that like, dude, we're like kids skating. They start basically running all of our names, which is normal occurrence. And as they're running my name, basically it comes up that I'm like a felon on the run for like armed robbery, right? And I'm like, yeah, you got the wrong guy. Like I'm like kind of being a punk at this point. I'm like, yeah, it's not me. And the guy's like, I'll run it one more time. Runs it, comes up, yep, Mikey Taylor, born August 29th. It was like a 7-Eleven arm, right? And he handcuffs me, like, and I'm sitting like, dude, at this point I'm panicking. I'm like scared. I'm like, dude, you have the wrong guy, I promise. And basically, after like begging him to run it one more time, the person basically comes back with all of the info. Yes, Mikey Taylor or Michael Taylor. Yes, born this date. Blah blah blah. And then there was one thing in it that wasn't me. That like the officer goes, is he Caucasian? And the person, I can't remember what the person's nationality was, but he wasn't. And the cop was like, okay, we got the wrong guy. I was like, dude. That was a scary one.
Yeah, that would have been interesting to say the least. What would have been your parents' reaction had you been pulled in? You got to get bail. Like, what's going through that?
I have no clue. I have no idea. I was like so tripping, like I'm not supposed to be here. Dude, who knows? My parents they probably would have freaked out.
Well, I think that's an interesting dynamic. Skaters, it's, you guys at times, I'm sure, get a bad rep. You're out there, you're in schools at 1, 2 a.m. All of these factors are accumulating. So I'm interested to hear what the dynamic was like for parents and what that was like for you. You had to make the decision not to go to college.
Yeah.
You're selling your parents on the fact that, hey, I got sponsors that are going to give me $300 and $500 a month so that this is what I'm going to survive and live off of and do what I want to do. It's a bold thing to try and do 20 years ago, like even compared to now where it's more, I guess, logical for people to come and, want to be a YouTuber or want to be a pro this, pro that. 20 years ago, that wasn't the case. It wasn't frequent. So how did you kind of navigate that?
Man, I basically tried to convince myself and my parents that I was just going to do this for a little bit. I'll just do it for 3 years. And then if I need to go back to school, I can always go back to school. I kind of pitched there's a time frame on skateboarding, but there's not a time frame on education. They kind of bought it. They bought it and then mixed with like one thing that they really wanted me to do was basically get help, have somebody come on and help me. Their concern was money. Their concern was like, what is this going to mean for your ability to get a job afterward? And so they brought somebody on for me to like try to get everything in order so that the wheels didn't fall off before we even got going.
Right. And that being your mentor who you met at 19, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was that relationship like? Because that's one of the things I bring up on the Athletes podcast is the fact that mentors are so important, especially for younger, individuals who are trying to become successful. I think learning from people is so important, especially those who have maybe gone through a similar situation or played the same sport or, someone outside of your parents that can be
Mm.
brutally honest with you and provide you some feedback that's going to hopefully provide you with a lot of knowledge moving forward. So I'd love for you to kind of dive in on what that mentorship process was like for you.
Yeah, so basically like he wasn't supposed to be a mentor. That's like the weirdest part. Like he was like, I thought he was just going to be like a financial advisor.
Mm,
And like the really cool thing and where I was blessed was like one of his principles or the foundation of the business that he started was that they empower and educate their clients along the way. They don't just
mm,
blindly manage money. And so that mixed with me being one really young, two really unique to a lot of the people that like he typically worked with.
mm-hmm,
uh dude, he spent a lot of time with me. It was like, I would talk to him. We would have like one-on-one meetings pretty frequently. I'd talk to him on the phone all the time, and he was just like constantly like not only checking in to see how things were going, but he would always drip these big points on me, right? And they started like they sound so obvious, but like as a kid, like you need people like really refreshing you on it. But it was like, okay, dude, you're gonna spend less than you make. We all know this, right? You're gonna spend less than you make. Okay. We're gonna pay yourself first. What does that mean? Well, we're gonna take a percentage, and that's gonna be a priority. Your savings is gonna be at a higher priority than your bills. Okay. And what next? And then it was like, okay, well then next we're going to look for ways to invest in yourself. And then it was like, we're going to build up, a certain amount of cash to put into opportunity that aligns with your goals and help me create all these disciplines at a young age that I just wouldn't have done if I didn't have him. One of the biggest things that he said to me though, that like I didn't realize the significance of it until later on, was lifestyle inflation. That was the big one for me, where he was like,
mm,
okay, we need to control your spending. One, two, we need to put goals or purpose behind every dollar spent, right? I'm like,
mm-hmm,
okay, cool. So we basically get all of this in order before I'm really making a lot of money. And then he hits me with this one. Look, you're going to make more money. For sure, you're going to make more money. And what everyone else does is they make more money, they spend more money. With you, you are going to stay on this lifestyle. No lifestyle inflation, because that's going to maximize the amount of money that we get to invest, because your goal is financial freedom. And the
mm-hmm,
thing that we don't know is when your career ends. And it was like, the perfect scenario was, one, I was young. Two, I was terrified of what life was going to look like after skateboarding. And three, I had somebody putting just straight truth and wisdom into, the moment I was in. And the outcome was, it was massive for me.
mm-hmm. Well, and especially in a sport like skateboarding, when one fall from one attempted trick could end your career, right? Like that's always got to be in the back of your mind. I can't imagine the stress that would be on that, and kind of constantly be trying to excel at what you're doing, push the limits as to what tricks you're trying, but also being cognizant and aware of the fact that, hey, if I screw up here, I'm done, and there goes my potential to earn,
Yeah.
right? And that's
Yeah.
ultimately what you're striving towards. Obviously your career ended 34, 35, injury based to some degree, but crazy. I can't even imagine what that would be like.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I appreciate about you specifically, in what you've come to be, is gone through the athlete to entrepreneur route, and you now are educating people through your social media platforms. I think that's huge.
Mm.
And I think a lot of athletes right now, more than ever, probably aren't necessarily in good financial standing because of that lifestyle inflation. I mean, you grew up in the 80s, 90s, it's big hair, pastel suits,
Yeah.
Cabbage Patch, Rubik's
Yeah.
Cubes, Air Jordans. Like, that lifestyle inflation is something that's so prevalent nowadays. And I think
Mm.
for a lot of athletes, they get sucked in because of social media, because of that fear of missing out on that opportunity to
Mm.
go to the Super Bowl and party with everyone and whatever XYZ it is. How were you able to come to terms with that? Besides the fact that you had that mentor with you, you obviously had to have that long-term end game knowledge about the fact that, hey, like I'm in this for the long haul. I'm
Mm.
not trying to make a quick buck.
Yeah.
I'm thinking 40, 50, 60. You're thinking generations, right? Like you
Mm.
want to make sure that your kids are in good financial standing whenever that happens.
Mm.
How do you wrap your head around that as a 20-year-old, as a 30-year-old? Because, you know, having a mentor say it is one thing, but you also have to have the ability to put that into action. So was there one specific method that you used, or one thing that you constantly were reminded of? Like, I know you talked about driving your 90s Civic that with no AC. I lived that '05 Civic, no AC life for a while. It's, you know, it's the grind. It's what you got to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, for me, I had to constantly remind myself of what my goal was.
Mm.
And by doing so, that's what made it easier to go through the times where, you know, I wanted to spend money, or I saw my friends just like buy a sick new car, whatever it was, right? Like, I needed to remind myself of why I was doing this. And then that helped when the moments where I felt like I was sacrificing.
Mm.
And so, I remember the first time it happened, one of my buddies, and at this time, like, pro skaters didn't drive nice cars, right? And one of my buddies got like an E-Class Mercedes, like a sick one, right? And I was like, "What the heck? Are you kidding me?" And I roll up in my Civic hatchback, and he looks at me, he's like, starts clowning at me, like, "Dog, I know you're making money. Like, why are you driving that piece of you know?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know why." You know, I call Randy. Randy, dude, so like, what do you think? Like, some of these guys are like making, you know, the same amount of money as me. They're driving these cars. And I try to even start justifying it with myself. Like, you know what? I need to have that so that other people think I'm more successful. Then they'll take me more serious. The whole like try to justify it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I had him go, Mikey, what's your goal? What's your goal? Is your goal to look rich, or is your goal to be financially free when your career's up? And I was like, I want to be financially free. I don't want to work after this. Okay. Well, if that's your goal and you're going to go buy that car, it's going to make it harder for you to achieve that goal. Ah, okay. Okay. You know, so that was like the beginning of it. And in the moment where everything really switched for me is when I started seeing that it was working. Right?
Mm.
When I started basically investing in uh storage units was a big one. Like,
Yeah.
investing in storage units, all of a sudden it's like, dude, I've got I got dividends coming in, like cash flow coming in, right? And then it was like there'd be a moment where there was like a refi, or I'd be like, whoa, this is working, right? And when you start seeing investments working, it gives you an added discipline to go, yeah, I want more of that. I'll
Double
maintain
down on it.
because I want more of that. Yeah. So that was a big turning point for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes total sense, and it's something I'm passionate about, because I would love to be able to do this, chat with people on the Athletes Podcast full time, and have a bank account that gets filled up every month from rent being paid or
Yeah.
storage units being used. Like, that's I resonate with a lot of your message, because that real estate is a fantastic way to provide a secondary source of income. And so
Totally.
I'm a big fan of it. I'm curious though, and it brings me to that point where you talked about, you know, buying storage units. You're crushing TikTok. And one of the things you kind of have, or one of the ones you did, was like buy a Toyota Prius or have 10 storage units, and it was about the same price of whatever, 20 grand. And like that story you just taught, like, brings it to real life, because it is like, and so many people are so, and I don't want to say they're short-sighted, because maybe that's their goal, was to own a brand new Toyota Prius. But when you look in reality, you're like, hey, I could buy 10 storage units that are going to be an investment, and it's an asset at the end of the day. And I think that's what a lot of people don't recognize, is the fact that assets are going to be providing you so much more financially long term than that liability in a vehicle, right?
Oh, 100%. I think even to take it a step further, it's like, I think most people, when they realize what is actually what, they feel like it's too late for them and they miss the
Mm.
window, right? Like, if you look at, like, I mean, dude, just think about the youth. Like, if we could all get started at 18, we would, right?
Hmm.
Well, look at what the youth is influenced by. Is the music they're listening to setting them up to succeed financially? No, it's setting them up to fail. Their schooling system setting them up to succeed? No. Are the people that they look at as influential setting themselves up? No. It's all this consumer kind of marketing. It's like training people to buy, not delay gratification and invest and take the slow route. It's so a lot of times you don't realize this till you get a little bit older.
Hmm.
And then you're like 40, 45 going, wait a minute, what I'm doing actually wasn't the right way. Oh, well, now it's too late. The reality is it's not too late, but the question becomes, how do you get kids to start thinking about setting themselves up when they're young giving them the longest amount of time to succeed. That's where the damage is done, right? In a good way.
Yeah, that's where you see
and
the effects of compound interest, right?
100%. And like for me, where I got lucky is I had somebody come into my life and basically said, everything that the world is telling you to do the opposite. Everything they say, do the opposite, you'll be fine. If I didn't have him tell me that, I would have done what everybody else is doing.
Crazy. It's amazing
You know?
that one person was able to have that impact on you. So I'm glad to see the fruits coming on the tree.
Look, and honestly, that everything that I communicate was because of him, right? Like he was the one that took the time to educate me and instill this foundation. And then yeah, I learned a lot through the way, but like dude, he's been a part of my life for the last 20 years. And dude, a lot of the stuff I communicate, like he'll watch it and go, "Yeah, I remember when I taught you that." It's sick though.
Yeah. Well, it's Gary Vee mentions it. It's like making things relevant, right? He's been sending the same message for a decade. Obviously, your mentor's been saying the same thing for a while, and you're just putting it on a new platform and reformatting it so that 13-year-olds are consuming it and 15-year-olds and whoever else is on TikTok, right?
That's right. That's right.
And that's kind of what you're doing with Commune Capital. Tell me a bit more about, what that is. And I think for the listeners, how I love the fact that it's helping athletes too. And I kind of want you to just dive in on kind of where that inspired, what spurred that growth.
Yeah. So it's funny. The whole creation of the company was because my career ended and that I had a mentor help me prepare for that career. So when basically my career ended and it didn't end the way I thought, like I think most athletes feel this way, that like we're going to know when it's going to happen. Our sponsors or our teams, whoever it is going to like set us up and go, okay, dude, it's going to be 2 more years. And then we're going to have this party. And then it's going to be this whole like, thank you. Never happens like that. So for me, it was like a phone call and the career was done overnight. Cash gone, income gone, everything gone. And so I started working through this, like, I didn't know how hard it was going to be for myself. Like when I was young, one thing that I did wrong is I thought that if I was financially set, if I was financially independent, then I was good. My sponsors can kick me off and I wouldn't care at all. That was not reality. The emotional challenge that comes to losing your identity, in a lot of cases, what you perceive your purpose to be, it's crippling. And so as I was like laying on the couch, basically trying to figure out like who the heck I was blindsided by how hard that was. Two, I was even in a position to work through that emotionally. Like if I hadn't have had all of this built financially, I would have gone into survival mode. It would have been, oh my gosh, dude, I've got a wife, 2 kids, a house. I got to get food on that. I got to get to work. Right. And when you're in survival mode, you don't usually have the luxury to address some of the emotional stuff inside. And it's why you see a lot of pro athletes, they never really address it. And then it just compounds and compounds and compounds. And then when they get older, it's a disaster.
It's crippling.
And so, you know what I'm saying? And so when I was working through it, there was, one, it sucked, truthfully, but two, I was very grateful to even be able to work through it. And so I had this idea that I wanted as many skaters, is what the original idea was, to be in the position I'm in. And when I started basically reverse engineering why I was even in this place, the 2 big reasons were I was educated and I had opportunity, education and opportunity. And both of those came from Randy. So my idea was I want to replicate what he did in my life for as many people as possible. And that's where the company started.
Cool. That's amazing.
Yeah. So, and to take it a step further, Randy, his company, that they also were involved in real estate. So a lot of the opportunity that I was participating in was with him. So when I basically came up with the idea for Commune, I wanted the opportunity that people could partner with us on to be in real estate, because that is an asset class that I always felt comfortable in when investing my money passively. 2, I wanted there to be an education component, because if I wasn't educated, I wouldn't have had the discipline to then have the capital to put into opportunity. And that's why with our company, you see our actual business is real estate investing. All of our content, though, is to educate on financial literacy. And then for me, because I was an athlete, I have a pain point for other athletes. And so I want to help other athletes, but our fund is not exclusive to athletes. I feel them. So I'm trying to do everything I personally can to help our community be in a better place.
Yeah, it really resonated with me when you kind of, I could get that vibe, right? Like I could tell you have that special place in your heart for athletes and want to make sure that they're able to succeed and kind of see those fruits blossom the way you were able to, right? On your Instagram, you posted about how crazy it is that personal growth can make you let go of the people you swore you couldn't live without. Thought that was extremely
Sure
deep.
you want to go there, dog?
Well, I think it's important for people to kind of understand that that's a realization that you come to terms with as you get older. Is there are specific people, specific habits, good and bad, that you need to address, maybe get rid of. That's something I've had to do over the past couple of years as well. It's just like refining your craft and what you're doing to continuously strive to get a little bit better every single day.
Yeah.
Can you give a little bit of insight as to, maybe it doesn't have to be a direct example, but I think it's important I'm all about educating the next generation of athletes for this show. My goal at the end of it is to create a library for any athlete to come in and have one sport that they're a skateboarder and they go to Mikey Taylor's episode. So for me, I think it's important for every athlete to be able to kind of connect with one another and understand. So I value your opinion, and I think it's important that people are able to listen.
I appreciate that. And I love that. That's your goal. That's a huge one. Appreciate it. I would say my perspective has changed on this. When I was younger and realized that like the people that I was surrounding myself had a massive impact in what I was doing, I went on this, like, I'm only surrounding myself with great people. It was like, that's it. That perspective has changed as I got older. And I started basically seeing the difference where there's some people that you are around to basically bless you and to kind of fill up the tank in a sense. And then there's other people that you're meant to do that for, right? So charge up, and then you're the leader and then blessing that group, right? You have to recognize who's who in that. So if you're going to be around people that, let's just say, for example, somebody who's struggling with something, and you are their person that they're going to call you and go, hey, dude, I'm really having a hard time here. This, and this. And your role in that relationship is, okay, I hear you. I feel you. Let's attack this, right? You are the one giving a majority of the output, but you can't always maintain in that environment. So you then also need the other group that you're like, hey, dude, how did you do this? This is what I'm struggling with. How does this maintain? And then being able to manage the blend between how much time you spend on each person or in each, call it demographic, is really valuable to know. Something that happened for me, like when I was young, was just like, dude, my goals just didn't align with anybody that I was friends with. Like, I had friends that like what they were doing at 20 is all they ever wanted to do. And so I just noticed, I was like, okay, we are not on the same wavelength. Yeah. And it was just like, dude, I need to get around people that have done it so that like I could ask them all the questions of things I need to like, avoid. And then also like seeing people that like have done things is like encouraging. It makes you feel like you can do it. So it's just like, I just went on this path of like, I want to put those people in my life. Like I want to be pushed. I want to like go out there and get it. And I want to see people doing it at a higher level so that I think it's possible, then I'm going to go do it. But if all I'm doing is hanging around people that are totally good with what's what at 20 years old, then this is it for the rest of our lives. This is all we're doing. And I didn't want that.
Yeah, that's a rut you don't want to necessarily get stuck in. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Tell me about what Tony Hawk meant to you, because Gary Vee brought him up in his Over Under series as the guy in skateboarding. And he was the guy who's created it. He was able to negotiate sponsors. He kind of essentially built the sport of skateboarding in a sense. Tell me what it meant to you, because you're a decade after. So yeah. Where does he fit in as far as like the Mount Rushmore, and how does he do you look up to him as an individual and human being?
Um, that's a really good question. So when I was younger, Tony Hawk didn't have a big impact on my life at all.
Okay.
I was impacted by people like Eric Costin and Guy Mariano, but Guy Mariano and Eric Costin were impacted by Tony Hawk, if that makes sense. So for me, it was like as I started getting older, there was a great amount of respect and dude, a lot of ways I was thankful for what he did because he paved the way for, I mean, in my perspective, pros to make good money. But I was almost a generation removed where he wasn't making he wasn't a huge influence in my life when I was young. Then as I got older and then seeing what he was able to take his skateboarding career and turn it into, then he became more influential to me.
Gotcha.
Like the entrepreneur me was influenced more by Tony Hawk than the skater me.
That makes sense. One of the things I learned as I was doing some research was your Retro Renegades Pop Culture Power Hour podcast that you started on Christmas Day of 2020. And I heard that you got quite a few over the years. You received about 100 flashlights as gifts. I want to know what your best Christmas gift was.
My best Christmas gift? Ever?
Yeah.
Dang.
Got 38 years to look back on. First 5 are probably a long shot.
What a great question. I am almost like stumped.
It's because you got so many flashlights in your backpack of things.
Dude, yeah. Yeah. Man, I would say the best Christmas present I ever got was, I'll tell you what, my wife's going to like this one.
Perfect. We love keeping wives happy.
I proposed to my wife on Christmas morning, and she said yes. So I'm going to say that would be my number one.
That's amazing. That is the ultimate best gift. Great answer off the cuff too. Good for you.
When it just comes together.
There's some serious brownie points coming for that one after you. Hey, babe, I think you. Yeah, babe, I think I should really wish. Yeah. Babe, I really think you should listen to this episode. I don't know why in particular. Just it's a good one.
Totally.
That's awesome. You talk about your morning routine. It's something that you didn't necessarily have as a skater growing up. I'm always interested in learning about the different habits, routines, specific things that these high achieving individuals like yourself put into practice. What does that morning routine look like and specific details about it that make it so effective?
It's a good question. So to kind of clarify, I did have a morning routine when I was skating. It just wasn't a routine that was setting me up to succeed. Like for me personally, I am routine based. I will do the same thing every day for the rest of my life and be totally stoked on it. But with skating, it was just like I'd wake up at the same time and then it'd be like we would go eat. And then we would go basically call all the boys, figure out where we're going. Then we would go skate. It was just on repeat, right? It started getting challenging when I had kids. And I started basically allowing my kids to wake me up. And then, depending on what their mood was like, would basically it would put me in that mood for the rest of my day. So if my kids were like doing great the first hour, then I was basically leaving the house going, hell yeah, I'm going to kill it. If my kids were like total psychopaths, I left that house just not in a good vibe. And so I started basically waking up before my kids and creating a routine that would allow me to be in the right mindset regardless of their attitude when they woke up, which would then allow me to leave the house in a mindset that I went out to succeed, to be in a good mood, to be happy, grateful, etc. And the morning routines change over the years, but for my routine right now, and it's a little bit different because we have a brand new baby. I get up about an hour before my son, and I go get my coffee, sit down by the fire or the fireplace, and then I do a devotional every morning. So I'll go through a whole chapter, and however much is allocated for that day, I'll read that. I'll do a devotional, and then from there, I'll typically write down 3 to 5 things that I'm thankful for or grateful for. And then after that, I'll write down a couple of my short-term goals and long-term goals. And then typically I'll go get my son, we'll wake up, the kids will get up, I'll prepare breakfast for everybody, and then I leave the house to go to work. But the two big things for me that and why I would recommend doing a morning routine is one, my faith is the most important thing in my life. So I want to make sure uh, that is I'm putting enough energy to maintain a good relationship. Two, being grateful, being thankful has
Mhm.
such a big impact on, I believe, your happiness, your success, all of the key categories. And so taking time to, you know, recognize the things that go well in your life and to be grateful for them. Then when you go out in the rest of your day, if something bad happens, you're looking through it through a lens of being thankful, which, in those instances where something crappy happens, it's not devastating. It's like, okay, well, dude, my life's good. Like, okay, that sucks, but like, how can I use that to then add on to my life that's killing it? As opposed to waking up being upset that you don't have things, everything's against you. My life has no meaning. Everything's set up for me to fail. And then when something bad happens, it just adds on top of that already upset feeling. And then you go downward instead of going upward. So I think it's massive.
Yeah, it's just the reframing your mindset, right? And I
Mhm.
think it's for you, it's something that I admire is the fact that like you are so joyful and energetic in every conversation that you have, in
Mm.
every instance that I've seen you on any piece of social media. It's awesome to see. So I appreciate that, and I think you give off some good vibes, man. Yeah, keep it up. Speaking of faith, do you have any faith in the stock market right now?
Ah. uh, it's interesting. It's
That's
definitely
why I
interesting.
asked you.
Um, well, the way in uh, the way in which I invest, I am comfortable.
Yes.
The way in which everyone else is investing, I think is gnarly. I think it's full blown crazy. And so, you know, I'm okay with it if done correctly. It's just, but look, like I am like the kids will look at me and call me a boomer investor, right? I am a value based investor. When I'm investing in something, I want that price to correlate something, not just a made up price based on people buying. I want it to be through the productivity of whatever I'm investing in, right?
Hmm.
Uh, Also, it's like I'm long term. I'm not trying to make my 4,000% in the next 5 years so I could be rich. That's not what I'm chasing. I
Yeah.
understand cycles. I understand longevity. So the way in which I invest, like, I'm not really concerned about this moment. I'm not concerned if things come crashing down. I've been in these situations before, and I will maintain through them. Uh,
Yeah.
but it's interesting times, dude. It's interesting times. Like I think
Well,
Robin Hood is like one of the most fascinating ones, right? Like w-
crazy
w-
story, eh?
we're well, dude. It's about like just look at the platform as itself, not all of the crap going on with them. Just look at the platform, right? Tech has made a lot of things really cool, like
Hmm.
the accessibility to invest. The fact that like it's fun, it's got like a good youth, like the youthful generation is stoked on investing, right?
Hmm.
That part's good. The problem is they don't educate at all. And their app, even though it opens up accessibility, it also, uh, how would you say it? It incentivizes bad investor behavior,
Hmm.
right? It's all about now, 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 quick. It's why you have like this day trader on the high. It's like,
Yeah.
and every kid thinks they're like, Warren Buffett 2.0. And like, dude, they're going to go through their first like, big moment and it's going to be bad.
Yeah, and that's why I gave a little fist pump once I heard your answer, because I am on the exact same wavelength in the sense that when I invest in stocks, real estate, everything that I'm doing, I'm like, man, I'm putting that money away. I don't even look at it. I don't even think about it. And like, I think that causes so much stress in people's daily lives when they look at their account and they're like, holy shit, I'm down 50%. They start getting some really nervous thoughts going through their head. I'm like, man, Like, put it away. Don't even think about it. The best investors are dead. Like the
Yeah.
people that don't touch their accounts for 20 years, 30
Dude.
years, because the stock market, Dave Portnoy is famous for saying it, like the stock market goes up. It's and like, but I like your point on the value purchase
Mm.
because, that share is supposed to be worth X amount of dollars based on a couple different factors. So because AMC or whatever other stock is going wild because a bunch of Reddit people are buying it, that's not the true value of the stock.
No.
So something I was feeling good about. I've got our little AZS sponsor here that it's a stock that I'm invested in. I just had to throw that in there and figured that
There
was
we
a
go.
good little segue, toss them in. I have two more questions here before I let you go. I know you're a busy guy, but I'm really curious as far as from your standpoint, going through skating in your teens, you turned pro. What was your biggest misconception going from skating in the streets of Los Angeles to becoming a professional skater?
Oh, my 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 perception of it was the amount of enjoyment and fun I had just as a kid was going to continue, and I was just going to get paid for it. Like I thought the
Ah,
you get paid to live your dream was actually what happens. That changes. And
mm,
when you become a professional, your craft takes on a different purpose. It's just not the same. Like when you're out just having fun with your friends, like there's no pressure, there's no requirements, you don't have to be certain places, there's none of that. And when it turns into a career, you almost have to find like a new love for it. I didn't expect that.
hmm,
I really didn't. I thought it was just going to be like, dude, I'm having fun for the rest of my life. And I had moments in my skate career where I hated it.
crazy.
Yeah.
Ah, man, that's such a good answer too, because I think that's, a lot of athletes probably assume that, hey, I'm just playing my sport, it's going to be great. But then you've got, negotiations you got to deal with. You got
Yeah.
sponsors you got to live up to. You got to
Yeah.
perform well to make sure that you continue getting those sponsorships.
You have people who know who you are. When I was young, I thought like people knowing me would be cool. Uh,
Mhm.
it is hard because people not only love you, but people hate you too, and that is
Mhm.
it's not easy to deal with.
Well, and that's something you came to terms with, transitioning from athlete to entrepreneur. You start posting on social media about entrepreneurial activities and you start losing thousands of followers because you're not posting kick flips and
Yeah.
whatever else, right? Like how, and that's got to again go back to your mindset, right? And be like, this is what I'm doing. I'm in it for the long haul, right?
Yep. Yep. That's 1000%. 1000%. This is just a new avenue in which I'm being tested in my belief system.
Yeah. Well, hey, keep it going, man. I think you are on a incredible trajectory, and I think your success in your career has only just begun, and which is crazy to think because you were arguably one of the best skateboarders in the world. So
Yeah, I appreciate that.
pretty cool to be able to feature you on the show. The last question that we wrap every episode up with on the Athletes Podcast is, what is your single piece of advice that you would give to the next generation of athletes?
For athletes specifically,
Hmm. And you can apply this to human beings if you'd like, but we do it specifically for athletes.
I'm okay with athletes.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, oh man, my number one piece of advice for athletes, professional athletes or just athletes?
This is Mikey Taylor's opportunity to provide his unique take on this question.
Okay,
So
this
you
is
can
good.
do it.
This is going to be my advice. Uh, for athletes, we learn a certain skill set that can transcend the sport that we're doing. We put in thousands of hours to master our craft. We go through hell to succeed. We understand failure. All of those will be successful in anything you do as long as you find the purpose behind what you're doing. So, the same energy that you're using to go into your sport, when you move into the next thing, you have to find the purpose and then apply everything that you know as an athlete, and you will have a strategic advantage above everybody.
Mikey Taylor, your words are giving me chills right now. I'm so motivated to get after it and keep investing
Mm,
strategically and in the right way. So thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge and insights on the Athletes Podcast. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, man.
Thank you, big dog. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys for tuning in to the 71st episode of the Athletes Podcast. If you enjoyed, hit that subscribe button. If you didn't, hit the like button, then subscribe. I appreciate you guys watching this amazing episode featuring Mikey Taylor, presented by the local skate shop in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.